because it's like you're taking the essence of Bob Marley, which is his music, which is his style, his fashion, his look, and you're sort of like saying, oh, it's because he's black, right? So I don't think a guy should be doing that, like doing the blackface thing, but dressing up in his outfit should be okay. You know, you can have black kids dress up as a Superman, and Superman isn't black, right? Just like you can have white kids dress up in Black Panther. That should be okay. You know, he's wearing a suit. Like Marvel itself had to put out a statement saying that it's okay. Yes, it's okay if you're white and you are, you know, and you want to dress your kid up in Black Panther. That's fine. You know, that's not racist. We totally encourage it because like what you are under that suit, under that mask, it doesn't fucking matter. That's the whole point of superheroes.
Okay. Destiny?
Like on its face, I don't think that blackface or whiteface when Chappelle does it, I don't think that these are necessarily intrinsically wrong, but anything that we do in society, whether we like it or not, is always going to fit into kind of a cultural context. Unfortunately, because of the history, if like a white person walking around in blackface saying, well, I just wanted to dress up as like my favorite kind of like black musician would kind of be like me walking around, you know, a neighborhood with a bunch of swastikas saying, well, you know, actually a long time ago, these were like Buddhist symbols. You can see they're actually backwards and I'm not actually being hateful at all. You know, like I think that you kind of have to take into account the context that everything sits in. And, you know, blackface was pretty, you know, the whole reason why blackface was created was, you know, for like the early minstrel shows and shit, like in the 1800s or whatnot, when you had people that were pretty much using these types of things to spread racial stereotypes and whatnot. And that was the whole purpose of it. And it's kind of hard to divorce current blackface from prior blackface when we're still dealing with a lot of racial issues in the United States. So, I mean, if somebody really wanted to do it, I mean, I don't think that would necessarily make them racist, but man, it seems like a really bad idea to do it. It seems like it's probably better to just not do that today, just because of the kind of the historical and cultural context that sits in right now.
Okay, Steve, you said you had a follow up, and then I have one final area we can try to. But it sounds like to me you two don't really disagree too much on things.
We'll find something.
Here.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is left over as the intent when it comes to wanting to hurt somebody, to want to point out discrepancies between them. They want to point out that one group happens to be different in some kind of way than another. And that's when so people should take offense. Things like the redskin, that was not originally unintended to be a divisive word. That actually was slang, and actually was the Sioux Indians that used that. One of them actually had said, I am a redskin, but what I say is true. So it all depends on what you want to just to tell to a person when you're saying some of these words. Same thing with dressing up. And I agree, dressing up like Bob Marley, if you're white, black, green, purple, who the hell matters? If you're paying homage to them, it's not disrespectful, it's not insulting, and it's certainly not something that we consider, generally speaking, to be offensive, right? I mean, if you're honoring somebody. So I think intent really has to be a huge portion of this. And I happen to say, even when you said something that really stood out to me about that, if you say something is offensive on behalf of another culture, that I agree with Destiny, people have a right to do that, but you have to take into account, would this normally be offensive to the people in that culture? Most people I know in certain cultures, they're not going to give a shit whether you dress up like you know, in like a Hispanic or if Hawaiian. Most of them don't care. So that's when it's like, why are you taking offense to something on behalf of this culture?
Yeah.
If the vast majority of this culture couldn't give a shit either way. Because as Destiny pointed out,
to clarify, you know,
we're all appropriating cultures. Welcome to the reality.
Yeah, right. To clarify, you know, I think it's okay. Okay. Sorry.
I'll go first.
I'll go first. All right. To clarify, I do think it's okay and it's perfectly normal to be offended on behalf of other people. So what I meant was to say that people who run out of things to complain about, they just want to look for new things to get offended by. And it's, you know, cultural appropriation is an easy thing to get offended by. You just see someone, you know, white guy dreadlocks, oh, boom, you're offended. You know, you got a moral crusade you can go on. So that's all I meant. But obviously, if someone's doing something like really heinous, of course I can be offended on behalf of the people he's doing it to. You know, I don't have to be those people to be affected by, like, I don't have to be a Jewish person to be offended by anti-Semitism. It offends me greatly, right? And I speak out against it. So, yeah.
Okay, and Destiny, you were trying to say something there a second ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I was under the impression that like that Redskin was pretty racially loaded. I feel like if I should fucking look it up. fuck, I should, yeah.
While
Fuck.
you-
I looked this up at one point in time, and I thought that around like the 1800s, 1900s, that this term started to become like pretty, like it was pretty much used as a pejorative. And I mean, like, understandably so. If I called, Ian a yellow skin, or if I called a black friend a black skin, like it seems like you're trying to other the person pretty hard with that terminology. Like, and a Native American is a red skin. Like, I don't know, just I mean, like, if you have a friend or whatever, that's cool. I would be really uncomfortable having like a team called that thing, though. That seems like a kind of a strange. If I went to like fucking India or some shit, and then they all called me "What's up, white skin" or something, that would probably feel pretty fucking strange to me. But I don't know.
So let's dive into this. And Steve, I know we said we wouldn't go into this area again after what happened last time, but what about non-binary gender pronouns? Jordan Peterson brought up a point that the society shouldn't be asked to refer to people as words that that make them feel uncomfortable, like ZMZ or those sort of things that some people today are asking people to refer to them as. What are your views on how to either one, identify that they want to be, they want to be referred to as something else, and two, using those specific pronouns that they are requesting that you use?
But the vast majority of people in this world are not going to identify themselves as Zim, Z, Zer, Bunself, whatever, right? So the idea that everybody, literally everybody, should cater to the small minority of people, very, very small minority of people, not even like a sizable chunk, right? Most transgender people identify as he or she. And, I think most people are okay with calling them that, unless they're like, like they want to be transphobic or something, right? They hate trans people and they don't want to identify them as a, you don't want to call Caitlyn Jenner she because they're an asshole, right? That's a thing some people do. I don't agree with that. I think that's just rude. That's just rude behavior. Although I don't think it should be legislated either. That being said, the whole Zimzy, Zer, whatever, that is basically an imposition. You have a small group of people from Tumblr, whatever, maybe Twitter, who are telling you that you need to memorize their Zimzy, pronouns, otherwise you're a bigot. I mean, I don't think I'm a bigot. I don't think anybody's a bigot for not memorizing these terms. And maybe, if you were their friend, and maybe you might respect it, but I don't think that even they take it seriously. Because, I mean, who comes up with this? Who comes up, and thinks, I'm actually I'm a bunny. I'm a bun self. You will refer to me as bun self. I won't even say me. You will refer to bun as bun self. It's like, come on, dude. Like, you're not some Her Majesty. I'm not going to call you that. No one should be forced to do that. I don't think. It's absurd. It's an imposition.
Okay. And what are your thoughts, Destiny?
I really, I don't see hardly anybody credible pushing Z's or whatever. I've just never seen this much before. The way that we refer to people in terms of pronouns and names is always done generally at the other person's behest. I mean, we call people names that they prefer to be called. If somebody has like a different set of pronouns, I don't know. I've never seen the big deal. If you want to be called like Zer, I'm probably not going to. I'm probably just going to refer to you as they, because it's like a convenient catch-all, and then just be done with it. But I don't know. I've never understood why people get so fucking ass pained about anything related to the gender stuff. I mean, like, it's we can dive into the social construct of gender and whatnot. But it's so
it's so funny you mentioned that, Destiny, because just prior to this, we were talking about intersectionality. And I think a lot of it stems from things like standpoint feminist theory and intersectionality and the narrative of persecution versus privilege. And it's kind of funny that we segued into that, because, as you're exactly right, people are, this is a small margin of people that are pushing for very specific things. And as Ian puts out, as a society, you don't usually cater to a small portion. We have a society, we have a collective understanding. These are how most of these words are used. If you differentiate from that, or do you want to deviate, that's fine among your local groups, but you can't impose that upon society as a whole in a general sense. Would you agree?
No, not at all. I think we do sometimes. I think you have to be very careful. I mean, like, look at the existence of the Senate. I mean, if you want to talk about a small number of people that can make very fucking large decisions about the course of our nation, you only have to look at half of our legislative body in the U.S. to see that we absolutely do that in the U.S. We also have different types of protections in place for certain minorities. You can't discriminate against somebody's veteran status. That's a small percentage of the population. You can't discriminate against somebody for their race. That could be small percentages. I don't know. I've never been so invested in these topics. If somebody had like a specific pronoun they wanted to be called, I mean, all of this is is very socially constructed. It's very related to language. If you want to be called like a certain Zer or Zay or whatever, as long as I can remember it, I'd probably do it. I just don't see the big deal. I do the same for names all the time. If somebody comes up to me and they're like, hey, what's your name? And they're like Jiang Zhang Jia or whatever. I'm like, oh, I wouldn't say like, that's a really fucking stupid name. I'm just going to call you John. Like, I would never say that. I'd be like, I'll make my best effort to call you whatever you want to be called, and then we'll go on from there. It doesn't seem like it impacts me that greatly.
Okay. Last area of topic that I can think that we can try to attempt to find some disagreement here. Is Trump a good president? Is Trump a good president?
Wait, real quick. I'm sorry. Can I clear? Because I see a couple of people in chat are kind of confused by me. So when I talk about in the Senate, in the United States Senate, every single state in the United States has 2 elected representatives that go to the Senate. We've got the House of Representatives. We got the Senate. So in the Senate, even very small states will have as much say as very large states. And some people are upset because a person in California might say, well, why does some fucker in Arkansas get as much say in me in Senate votes? Or not as much say, but like 38 times as much say as I do, because there's so much more of us than there are them. That's what I was referring to there. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. And what I was referring to isn't overarching, right? There are obviously exclusionary things to it, such as in the Senate. I fully agree. And I think that it should be set up that way. The House, a little bit different, obviously, but the Senate, equal representation for each state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Ian, is Trump a decent president?
It depends on which policy. Is he good on? I don't know. I mean,
overall,
what policy? Overall.
Yeah. What's your overall takeaway from Trump?
I'd say overall, Trump has been garbage on pretty much every single thing he has done. I would struggle to find a single positive policy. I would struggle for anybody to find me a single positive change that Trump has enacted for this country.
Now we're talking. Okay, give me one of those policies.
That's subtle, Destiny. You want it? You're a little reserved on that. Tell us how you really feel.
Ian, give me a policy that he's done well on.
That he's done well on. Well, he's done some things not bad on, I would say, like immigration. That's the thing. Even among the MAGA groups, they're like, he's not hard enough on immigration, right? They'll say he's not hard enough on immigration, that he's not hard enough on lowering taxes. And then on the other side, it's like, well, he's too hard on this. So, it depends on who you ask. But for me personally, I mean, I'm not American, so I'm not like super invested in what Trump does. But I can see that he is creating a sort of like a nationalistic pride among at least a certain group of people. But it's causing division to everybody else because people feel like they're embarrassed by President Trump. So, there's pros and cons. And I think you guys being Americans are better equipped to talk about it. And Destiny, maybe you can tell us what you hate exactly about President Trump. Like, can you name like one policy they did that is like really bad that maybe I wouldn't even disagree with?
Before you do that,
tariffs
Destiny,
are
let me ask you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Oh, we can do this for 2 hours. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to ask one follow up. Just a yes or no, Ian. Do you think that Trump is a better president than Hillary would have been?
I don't know. I can't say. I mean, Hillary is one thing that she would have probably caused maybe a war in Syria, like actually a ground war, right? Because she's super hard on that before the election. She was super hard on that whole thing. So she might have actually started a proper war, and maybe that's a bad thing. But for everything else, I can't really say. I mean, she's not a bad leader. I mean, she knows what she's doing. She's a fucking veteran. She's good at that. She's just bad at promoting herself because she's not very likable. That's the thing. So maybe her decisions wouldn't be very popular, but then again, neither is Trump. So I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah. All right, Destiny. What's give him something that he can agree with anywhere. Surprise me.
Sure, we can bring up immigration. I think the immigration stuff has been a shit show for everybody involved. The whole banning of Muslims from 7 somewhat arbitrary countries. I don't know where that's standing right now. Didn't they rechange the countries, and is that still going through the Supreme Court now after the change? That whole shit show was caused a lot of fucking problems with people that were promised visas from certain countries that didn't get them as a result of intelligence work that they did for the United States as informants and whatnot. It caused obviously a great shit show amongst America and the rest of the world for people that thought that we were fucking up our immigration policy in the countries that we have relationships with. A lot of people thought it was hypocritical because we left countries like Saudi Arabia off the list, who, that's where 11 of the 9/11 bombers and shit came from. I mean, what else on immigration? The child detention centers, those were horrible for everybody. Even that played poorly, even with Republican media. Trump was on news one day saying that was a Democrat policy that they couldn't do anything about, and the press was so bad. 2 days later, he rescinded that shit by executive action. Like, that's how bad that was. We just got a report 2 days ago, I think, that came out, the autopsy of that transgender lady that was fucking beat to death, or was rather beaten up multiple times and then left to shit and vomit herself to death in some cell for 3 days in one of the in one of the private detention centers referred to from ICE, from our Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. We've got Trump being on record saying that kids